My name is Eric Lawson, and this is how to make a duck call.
Alright, so for the first stage of making the duck call, what are you going to start with? What do you do?
So you take a block of wood. This one is pre-staged. I've laminated it together. You need to put a 5/8 hole in the middle. All calls that you can buy online are 5/8 centered holes with drill bits.
And that's for, why are you making that hole?
That is where the insert of the duck call will go.
Okay.
So this is a tree branch that we cut off. I've pre-drilled it. Going to get ready to shave it down to this size to stage it up to get ready to put the band on. Then we'll work on shaping, get the final size to get the final cut for the duck call.
Sweet.
Because you could, if you wanted, this could be your duck call.
Boom.
This, just like that. That's the difference between a duck call. Shape.
So then after this, after you make all those cuts, then you're going to go into the shaping process, right?
Right.
So now, what do we have over here?
So I got this special band. I'll show it to you under the light. It's a US $50 pressed to specific measurements from a guy that I found on eBay. And this will fit perfectly around this one that I've already shaved down. It's going to go all the way up in here. Because it's a coin and this edge is not even, I'm going to tuck it up inside the call, epoxy glue it, let it sit, and that'll sit on there nice and snug, and then have our backing, and then we'll work on a bubble, shave it down, and get a nice smooth even layer for the lip. So let's get to work.
Alright, so what is this machine right here?
So this is a wood lathe that I actually bought off Amazon. It's a Wen woodworking lathe, 8 inches by 12 inches. And so you have adjustable speeds, you're on. That's at very, very low speed. Turn it all the way up high for high speed. Now,
that's going to shave your call into the size and the exact shape that you want it, right?
So this is a special bit here. This bit, let's see. This bit is called an expanding mandrel, 2 5/8 expanding mandrel. This is just a replacement piece. Bought this offline as well. And this goes into the hole after you drill it. You'll push it on there, and then the very end of this is an Allen wrench that expands out when you do this. So now, after tight, you can't tug it off, and it's safe. So
you're basically just tightening that on there, correct?
Yeah. So this sits snug. Now, if you're doing bigger shapes than this is exactly how you would do it. You would snug everything in, tighten it down, and now it's going to spin evenly on an axis. But because duck calls are smaller, it is easier to work without this end piece and have it free, because the mandrel end is only right here, so you don't have to worry about a long.
So if you don't use this piece, it's basically going to be super wobbly if you have if you're working with a long piece of wood.
Yeah,
right?
If you're going to make a nice club or something, a mini baseball bat, you'd want an end piece. But when you're doing the roughing gouge and bringing it down to a nice workable size, you'll have this piece in the end there. So
okay, so what have you done to this part of the call so far?
I've taken this giant tool and picture this like this, and I've taken it, and as it spins, I've shaved it down to a nice smooth center. And the ideal thing to do is, when this gets up and going, you want to be able to put this on here and have minimal chatter. So if I put this piece on there, it's obviously going to be uneven and wobbly, and this makes it a nice easy working surface. I did not shave it down perfectly smooth because, once again, you need to leave the most amount of material to get more detail into there. So this is a good starting point, because once I have the band that I want to use, I have multiple different types. You can use a brass band, you can use a half coin, you can use a piece of PVC pipe, you can use duct tape, whatever you want to use. But once you establish what size this is, then that's your working distance from the inner side or the inside to the outside.
All right, Eric, what are you doing?
Sharp tools. And we'll see the spark. There you go. Let's roll.
Let's do it.
What we got now is we've fixated the lowest point right here on the call. So most calls go from a little knock point where the band rests against, then a giant bubble kind of goes down, and then this is going to be the mouth end here. So I picked my lowest point here. We're going to work up a bubble, build it, and then take it down to this spot right here. This is going to be the knock point for the band when it sits.
Stage of the call and it has some sort of shape and form. Just go over like the techniques that you use in order to get those shapes.
So you take the tool right here and you can see I was sliding it into the lowest point that I wanted right here, and that's what you need to really establish is where you want the lowest point, because once you take the material away you obviously can't put it back. So I left this little spot here specifically. We're going to burn a line in here, and then that's going to be a piece of detail. But then when you're doing your curves, you want to start here and then work this way. So you're working it around. But then to keep the bulge, you need to almost work at this angle, and you're pushing like this. And let the material go away, don't overdo it. And then this, specifically this gap right here, I took the tool and I pressed it, and then I fanned it in and fanned it out, and that's how you get this V. Now what the ideal thing to do is you want to leave as much detail as possible because they're custom calls. So you try to do something different every time, but also leave your mark. So I try to do something along this line, and then we'll also burn a line right here. So it's going to have two marks right here and here, And then next, after that, we're going to work on the mouth. We're going to pull it off, flip it around, and work on the other end. Alright, so now that we got the shape here, we're all done with carving it on this end. Now we're going to turn it around and shape it this way, mainly because this piece right here will get in the way if I try to do it. So just pull it off and flip it around and start to work on the mouth. The key with the mouth is to make sure that it's something that you would want rather than something that looks cool. So you want to make it functional. So you put the guard in place, and you can see it's kind of a fountain looking. It's growing upwards, so we're probably going to come out and just shave off the ends right here, work this down maybe a little bit because it's an angle this way. We're going to take it down, probably coming up straight, and then flare it out in the lips. Make it easy. All right. Okay, so now we're going to come in from the end and just make sure that the top part is all nice and smooth. And come in here, open up the hole a little bit, and then also work on this tight end right here, and then we'll be just fine. Okay, so we have that all squared away, and the last thing to do is going to be flip it back around. We're going to put the band on, glue that on there, make sure that it's all snug up, and then we'll start to sand it and get ready to go for the final seal coating and be all set. So basically what I did is I took the $50 and I jam pressed it on there. You notice that when it started, basically I took it and I flared out edges to create some rough stuff. Rough the inside of this, use epoxy on it, and now I'm just going to take this and just shave off the end to knock it up, and then we're going to re-glue again. Doesn't matter if glue gets all over the place because we're going to sand all that away. So here we go. Alright, so the final stage, if you use sandpaper, you can use sand blocks like these. You can use a lot of anything to sand. The best thing that I found is Abranet abrasive netting. Find this on Amazon, pretty cheap stuff. Comes in strips like this, which are these pads. You're supposed to put it on these pads, as you can see in the picture. What I do is I just cut them into long strips, like you can see here. And I have everything from 80 all the way up to 600. So before I get going, I try to just stage it out. That way I'm not trying to figure out which one I need next. So we're going to start with you don't necessarily need to do 80 or 100, but I have them here just in case to knock off some large pieces of the glue that might be there. And then usually start about 120 and move all the way up to 600. And then you want to use 600, especially around this mouthpiece on the end, to make sure it's nice and smooth. So let's get rolling. So basically just knock off the large chunks of glue that might have fallen off with the 80 to 100. Establish your grooves, make sure that they're still there, nothing's filled with glue. Because once you get up to the 600, the glue will definitely shred apart. Your Abranet. Is my hand in the way? So You can see we took it out, we reestablished this notch right here, got the groove back. Now we're going to start, this is 80, now we're going to start with the 100, work our way up to 600. I'm going to turn on it. So the call is basically all smoothed out down to 600. You can see it's nice and smooth and shiny. We worked the inside of the call a little bit, but made sure that the mouth was nice and smooth. Gonna have to touch up this end a little bit. This is where the glue came out and then some sawdust in there, so you just touch it with the edge of the blade and we'll sharpen it up. And then the end result, we'll stain it, seal it, and here you go. Done. Alright, so the last step is to just seal this bad boy. You can use anything from super glue, mineral oil, tungsten oil. We're going to throw tung oil finish on this, low gloss. You can see here. Just something to seal it with. Make sure the key with the duck calls though is that you want to seal the inside. So after you get it in there, kind of shove it halfway through and then make sure that the inside gets some love as well. Then you can see under the nice beautiful light, it's going to really make the two-tone pop, the detail good as well. So this one we're going to let sit and dry for about the night, maybe a little bit longer. And we'll put it next to the next calls that we've done. So here's a view of some of the other calls that we have. This piece of wood specifically started out like this. You can see the two. This one has the $50 ring as well, with a little bit of detail on the middle for your lanyard. And then this is going to be the next time. This is epoxy with wood, so you can see it's spun down, ready to apply the band, and then we're going to work another call. So you can see this call right here. This is a piece of PVC pipe that came onto maple. So when it was maple, then we stained it and put the band on there to tone down the PVC pipe coloring to make it look more rustic. This is a piece of cocobolo with a copper pipe. So we took a copper pipe and we cut it down to this size, shoved it on there, and then did just a standard call. This is one of the first calls that I did. Let's see, you can see this one's PVC piping as well. PVC is very easy to do. This one right here is another copper pipe on a piece of dogwood, I want to say, that had a nice knot on the side, but you can see the one burn mark and the detail around the mouth as well. This is diamond wood, so this is just a simple call without a band. Diamond wood you can buy online at anything, and it's basically just sheets of laminated wood that's been stained and put together. This is another one that we did where it's a chunk of cocobolo with maple in the middle, so we took 3 like this rather than gluing it in the diamond pattern. If we would have glued this to the side, that's how you would make this call here with a standard brass band. So those are all the other ones. There's much more.
And then what are you what type of inserts are you putting in these?
These inserts are, you can go on echocalls.com, and I think these are the open water editions or the timber, and then you can buy, you can see here you have your choice of green, smoke, black, and this one I'm pretty sure is amber.
And what size again are those?
These are all the standard 5/8 diameter right here. So that's why your hole has to be 5/8 in order for this to work. So find a chunk of wood, drill a 5/8 hole, and you can make anything a duck call. Until next time.